Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with US Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call US Asset Management today and put us to work for you.
Not riding with him. Very vocal in your critique of Mayor Mamdani. You wrote in the Wall Street Journal that my party's future isn't Mamdani's New York. Are we Israelis following this closely? Perhaps are we Jews? Are we overhyping the Mamdani effect, or are Jewish lives in New York or in general under threat in the U.S. today?
I don't support the democratic socialists. I don't support people that believe in open borders. And I also don't support people that were celebrating on October 8th. I don't think that they're the type of Democrats. I'm about winning. I don't give moral victory speeches on election night. I'm a believer in one thing. If you want progressive politics, you got to win, and you got to take a Republican district and make it a Democratic district. I don't believe those people represent the future, and I not only don't think they represent the future, they can't win elections in the states that count for winning the presidency. And without that, it's just after hours music. That's all it is.
You know better than I do that there's a different conversation within the Democratic Party about whether Israel should be allowed to buy weapons, even defensive weapons. What do you make of that?
I want this to get across. Israel does not have a problem in the Democratic Party. Israel has a problem in America. And very specifically, a generational problem under 30. I don't know if you saw this, but there's a poll out today. Mamdani is more popular with American Jews than your prime minister. I want that to sink in and understand and get your head around where this is.
I want to ask about Netanyahu, a man that you've had, let's say, a complicated relationship with over the years.
That would be one adjective.
Lots of ups and downs without the ups part. I mean, you put a lot of the blame on him, U.S.-Israel policy, perhaps the rise in anti-Semitism as well, the war with Iran. I mean, I wonder whether, have you considered that if he leaves office, once he leaves office, a lot of this would not really change. When you have the mayor of New York, talking the way he does about he doesn't think Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. This doesn't disappear when Netanyahu disappears.
No, in the great Jewish tradition, yes and no. We do have a difference because I disagreed in 2009, 18 years ago or 17 years ago. I didn't just disagree, I said it to him. Out of respect, that what you will do with your housing plan will lead to two places: endless conflict and the isolation of Israel. If there was a prediction that I wanted to be wrong on, that I would have taken the under rather than the over on a bet. That was the prediction. Now, I said it to his face. Now, the end result, because he didn't want to hear it, he called me a self-loathing Jew.
If you will.
Yeah, well, but what we've been telling, Netanyahu, the policies of Netanyahu government is not only problem for us. We are not shying away this is saying from this. His policies and his government is a burden for Israel, is a burden for region, and is a burden and threat for the international security. We've been telling this for a long time. Not because everybody believes this. Wherever you go, everybody agrees with the fact that Netanyahu and his policies is a security threat for international security and economic security.
Do you think Trump gets that?
I think so.
Yeah. So in your mind, the U.S., European partners, NATO allies really understand it's important to scale back, turn the temperature down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me
Except
this.
for Israel, yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. So the rhetoric between Turkey and Israel has been rather tense of late. In your mind, will this lead to an open conflict between Turkey and Israel?
Well, I think there is no reason to have an open conflict, just since you are asking, because, but as I've been telling, whenever I hear this rhetoric coming from the Israeli politicians, especially as they get closer to the upcoming elections, from both some opposition figures, not all the opposition figures, thanks God, that are still very sane and good people with wisdom and strategic mind in Israel. Not all of them like Netanyahu and his people. But Netanyahu and some people, as they get closer to the elections, they need enemy. Because after they wage war on Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, they need another enemy to get somebody to pity them and to,
and you think they're trying to do that to Turkey?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Put you in the firing line, if you will.
Yeah. Well,
welcome back to the SCIF. I am not in the studio, obviously, on the road, but don't worry. We got a great show for you today. We've got it all figured out. I have figured out what's going on with the Matrix, and I'm going to talk with Tom Teague about it because I've been connecting the dots, and a lot of it is starting to make sense to me. So, and we're putting a lot of this content out, but we'll discuss it here in the second segment. That being said, I've got Tom Teague. We're going to have a great discussion on markets, what's going on in the world, what's behind the Iran flare-ups, what's behind Trump's agenda, his thoughts, the way he does things, as Tom says. So we're going to talk about all that in the second segment, so stay with us. I want to say hello to the crew in the chat. You're cleared hot. Check out whatfinger.com. It's a great aggregator site. They post a lot of our content. And did you see in the cold open, Mitch McConnell out on a stretcher to the hospital, hasn't been seen or heard from 3 weeks. His wife goes to China while he's in a coma, or if he's alive, whatever's going on in the hospital. Elaine Chao goes and meets with the Chinese Communist Party a mere 72 hours later after Mitch is hospitalized as a vegetable, essentially. So, wow. And then John Thune comes out and says, you know what? Mitch is fine. I talked to him. He's great. He's all good. So who is Thune working for? We know who Elaine Chao is working for. Obviously, she just told us. Anyway, in a weird story about her sister dying in a Tesla that drove itself into a pond and killed her, lot of intrigue going on there. Really, really, really interesting. So we'll discuss all of that. And then I've got Ira Bishotsky coming in the second hour, and we're going to talk more financial markets. Let's do the mission brief. I'm your host, Todd Wood. Today is July 10th. Here's your mission brief. Is the ceasefire over, or is it just entering a new phase of tit for tat? And the Ukraine depopulation, this is what I figured out, and we're going to talk about that. Elaine Chao heads to Beijing with Cocaine Mitch in a coma. Interesting. Connecticut's still pushing the vax. The commies are still pushing the vax. That's all of a piece, my friend. It's all combined. And the DNC is worried about the DSA. You heard Rahm Emanuel talking about that. It's threatening their power structure as well. So, wow, so much to go through. Don't go anywhere. We got a great show. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
The pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
All right, let's talk markets and let's talk what's going on in the world. I want to bring Tom in. Mr. Teague, thanks for joining me from over in France.
Very hot, unair-conditioned France, I might add.
Yeah, they don't believe in air conditioning, do they? I mean, I'm serious.
No,
I mean, I think
no, it's the most bizarre thing ever, you know. But,
yeah,
you know,
okay.
It's the tradition, I think, and the whole climate change aspect of it.
Yeah, you gotta.
There's literally more people who die here every year from heat than gun crime in the U.S. than homicide.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's something they could easily remediate. You know, it's you know, it's just that it's not. You know, most of my friends have actually gone out and bought air conditioning this summer. They've just thrown in the towel, so to speak. You know?
Well, you know, when you bring in all the third world migrants from Nigeria, you won't need so much air conditioning, you know, so maybe they're just planning ahead.
I think yeah.
Correct. You know, we've been doing a lot of research, and we put out an article this morning on what's going on in Ukraine, and they are talking about migrants. They are advertising in India and bringing in millions of non-Ukrainian migrants to that area. So I'm just kind of bringing this in so I can show the audience here. 1 second. There we go. So this article is up on CDM now, but here is the advertisements they're putting up in India. Create a family, search jobs, create the future, select Ukraine.
You can have this maiden if you move to Ukraine.
Especially if you're Walid from Syria, you can get that.
Yeah, that's they're obviously, you know, you've seen the news. There been protests against the conscription of people. I mean, they're kind of over this thing. It's a disaster. The media is not covering it. Most of them. You are. I think Russia's recently been, gaining some territory, and I think Russia's starting to going to play hardball with them.
I think you're right.
They did they kind of stuck to what they said they were going to do, and they made it about, the areas where they had ethnic Russians, and also, conveniently most of the mineral wealth of the country. But it was they weren't really going into Kiev, and I think now they're like, okay, gloves are off. And it's just funny to see also a lot of Europe just thinking that they can fight a war with Russia.
In Donbass, a lot of people don't know, we covered it for 10 years, but they killed like 14,000 people in Donbass with shelling in the communities, like, ethnic cleansing, that area of Russian speaking.
They banned them from speaking Russian. They did, the whole Maidan thing. I mean, it's a joke. So
maybe Putin saw what was going on and is like, they're going to do this, what they're doing now to West Ukraine. They were going to do that to that area. Maybe that's one part of the calculation in his mind. But I just see this as very obvious now that they're depopulating this. They're bringing in a slave class. And, that's what they
because they can't get their own people to fight anymore, and they're running out of them. They've just put them through the meat grinder, and it's a complete joke. I think Ukraine is, when this thing ends, and Europe does realize that they're not going to get the $13 trillion of mineral assets that are in the Donbass, it's going to be a huge disaster, and it's going to require huge amounts of capital to fix it. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I don't think the prospects are very good. And I certainly don't think EU membership is really on the cards. That's my own personal opinion.
Well, he's pushing that hard, and NATO membership, and,
Well, NATO membership ain't no way, I don't think. I mean.
Yeah. It would be insane. Well, that's the bigger picture, but let's tie this to Iran. My thought is that it's the same kind of UK actors that are behind what's going on in Ukraine. Boris Johnson was the mouthpiece, but it's MI6 and all that, and they're in Iran trying to stir up trouble again. I wouldn't doubt that there's calls from London to Tehran saying, okay, strike him again, try to do something to the ceasefire. I mean, what do you think is going on in Iran? You were talking about that before.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's interesting how I think there's a lot of people that are like really critical of us not getting, sorry.
No worries.
One is, I think there's a lot of people who were critical of us going in the first place have now that they've watched, and I think this is a sense of public opinion. And despite what the polls are saying, I think the world has sort of seen the unreliability and just the lack of trust that you can have in this Iranian, regime. And so I think people are sort of realizing that there's no way that Iran could ever be trusted with a nuclear weapon, just the way they've behaved and lied throughout this whole thing. The other thing is, I think that, right now oil prices come back. The oil's flowing to some degree. And I think generally speaking, we've got them sort of ham-tied by virtue of the fact that we've destroyed most of their Navy and most of their Air Force. They managed to have some old MiG fly next to the presidential plane with a casket in it. So I think that there's no real hurry to resolve this thing. I do have always felt like there's been some sort of tacit support for Iran from European countries, whether they have, contractual interests, businesses investing there. I mean, it's a very large country with a reasonable amount of wealth. So I think that, Europe has been less supportive, but it seems like something that struck me was, and I think you have to look at everything Trump says and not under in the lens of, well, Trump's just bloviating or whatever about it. I think he had a meeting with NATO, and it must have been pretty productive because he was very praiseworthy of those guys after that. So, we'll see what happens. But I don't think.
What do you think he got? Did he get help with Iran? Did he get more military spending?
Well, I think he got more military spending for sure. And I also think that he felt like maybe they let us use some of the bases now, to conduct, military stuff against Iran if we need to. But I think he's definitely winning slowly. He's winning over some popular opinion. I mean, we're there. It's not costing the hell out of us as long as we're not bombing. We don't have troops on the ground. And I don't think he's going to do that. You would know more than me, but I hear that there's a possibility that you get like the Kurds coming in, and that might be, a front and draw out Iran's army. And that might be, if we control the airspace, then we can help in that respect. I think that's going to happen. But I generally think it's going the right way. I mean, he's giving them an off-road, which he does virtually with everybody. It's like bend the knee and you can get on with it. And I think that's going to be, Trump's policy is like, we'll let you, control yourselves, but you cannot screw with us. You can't affect trade. You can't affect oil price. You can't terrorize other countries. If you do, you're going to pay the price. And I think I think it's going to work personally.
So, how does that? Where does that leave Europe when it's all over? Are they just supplicants, or are they?
Well, I think I think everyone globally will benefit from them losing power in whatever way it is, because I think there's always a premium on oil price. Just looking at the Straits of Hormuz, there's always an unpredictability of them being able to damage oil going out of there, and they always go to that point. People are like, Trump didn't game this out. That's BS. I mean, everyone's known that this is what's going to happen. And I think they've done a pretty good job of containing that risk. In the meanwhile, there's people that are buying, oil that's coming through pipelines, and they're building pipelines in Saudi Arabia around it to circumvent it. So almost regardless of what happens in this particular scenario, oil is going to find a way to get around the Straits of Hormuz without actually having to be there. So, I mean, I do think this is like China's buying the US's oil right now. Trump's been very vocal about how he doesn't want China to be cut off, but at the same time, they better behave themselves, right? It's all part of his, we'll do business with you. We're the guys on the block. We're the bosses. And we're not going to mess with trade as long as you don't mess with trade. So, I think I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of side effects of what he's doing with Iran vis-a-vis China and getting them to play. And I think for the most part, I think the world's growing tired of this regime, and that's starting to really, take place.
So you're basically saying, I've got Susan Kokinda from Promethean Action on Wednesday, and you're basically saying the same thing that you're saying, or that she's saying, that this is not just a fight against Iran. Iran is a vector, just like Ukraine
100%.
And it's a vector for the City of London, the whole banker establishment, and you're cutting off the way they've done business, the ability to move oil up if they want by sending a few missiles in the Gulf and a lot of other things. So you're really fighting the European old establishment,
correct?
Which is fascinating. Which, if you look at the NATO summit in that vein, then maybe Trump did get a win out of it.
And who knows what could have happened with Greenland as well.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk markets. Kevin Warsh, how's he doing at the Fed?
I think he's doing a terrific job. I think he surprised a lot of people in his first meeting. He was basically, expected to come in there and act like he was Trump's sock puppet. And he addressed firmly that, price stability was a real issue for him. I think they're going to do things differently. I think he's got all these sort of like, committees looking at things, the way that they look at data, where they draw their data from. I think he's made a lot of sort of mentions of, the Greenspan era. And I think he was a big Greenspan fan. And he said that on his confirmation at the White House when he was he signed in. And I think he's also made statements. And this is one of my biggest problems with Powell, is that Powell was not a growth person. He was an old believer that the Phillips curve was, real. I don't believe it. I don't believe that there's a constant struggle between, employment and inflation. I don't think Warsh does either. So I think the good side of this is silver lining is I think we could have, and you look at the way markets work. Markets have adjusted over a long time to every time there's growth in the US, they raise inflation. So a lot of the companies in the US, you don't really stay there for long. You rent the space during cycles and then you're out of them. We don't have very long lasting growth cycles because Powell was definitely, I mean, if you remember like in 2018, 19, when Trump was president, the first go around, as soon as he started deregulating, Powell started raising rates and inflation was roughly where it was during, the time period before Trump was president. So I think having a pro-growth, pro-employment guy who doesn't believe that like inflation is going to be caused by tighter employment is great. And, I think he's certainly, in this backdrop, and he's mentioned this with oil coming back down, the CPI is out next week and it's supposed to be down 10 basis points on the month, which is good. Right. And things are getting back to where they were. I'm not a big believer. I think there's like a 64% chance of a rate increase in September. I don't think that hasn't been a very reliable thing anyways, but I'm personally not on the bandwagon that they're going to raise rates in September. I just don't think it happens. I think
if we get a big CPI drop, that's going to be a big boost for Trump too.
Well, I think it'll help for sure. But I think, he's mentioned bonds. He's mentioned, not directly, but I think these guys he's mentioned the housing market, which is definitely a result of high bond yields, like 10 years. And so, I kind of think that that he's going to focus more on getting bond yields back down. He's going to focus more on getting more, like sort of live data than we were using before. They were using for the CPI calculation. I mean, this is really boring stuff, but the owner equivalent rent, it was like stale data from, months and months ago. So you could never get a reliability of like what's actually going on. And we've just recently found out that housing has been going, like rents have been going up directly because of all the illegal immigrants coming in. Right. So I think, you get that down, you get rates down, and I think you see, a general, big economic growth cycle. And there's definitely pent up demand for years of very slow growth. There's also, we haven't really gotten back to where we were pre-COVID and a lot of the supply chain and stuff like that. And I think, this administration's really been working hard to address all that. So, and I just think Warsh is a much more credible, intelligent guy. He actually is an economist where Powell was not. And I think Powell, and I'm very critical of him. I think he messed up a lot of things when he was there. I think we've got somebody who really understands the economy and has a different view. And that's where the fight is, by the way, in the Fed. You've got all these old guys that are like holdovers from Obama and Biden, and they don't believe that growth is necessarily a good thing. And that's very convenient because misery is the recipe of the Democrats, right?
Well, it's degrowth communism is what it is.
Yeah, that's how they get elected.
Yeah. I have a question. You mentioned the rents coming down. That's a huge point.
Before you ask, this is not an alcoholic beer. So,
well, what time? It's 5 o'clock in France, right?
30 years, so.
Deportations. You mentioned the migration driving up the rents. What's going on? Because I know they're bringing out a lot of people out of the country, but is it where people? You may not know this. Is it where it needs to be? And I guess the bigger question is, how is the market perceiving the immigration issue right now? And is it helping or hurting the market?
I don't think it's as much of an issue for the market right now. I definitely think that labor has shifted and there's more jobs going to Americans than were, illegals in the past. I think it's a very kind of subjective, answer. I personally think they need to do more to get illegal immigrants out. There was 10 million who came in here during Biden. I think they got to get all those people out. And there has to be, and I would rather the Republicans tackle this than the Democrats when they get power, but there has to be some sort of solution to how we're going to integrate the people who have been here for years and years illegally. And anybody that is sees anything in construction, landscaping. There's a lot of restaurants. There's a lot of industries where there is, hardworking people that have been here for a long time. There has to be some sort of resolution, and maybe that's where the balance is, to agree to get rid of all the people who are here recently and to do some sort of I think the program should be some sort of visa that's granted for work, not citizenship or voting. And
completely agree. Yeah,
invalidated by any kind of crime committed, even if it's like a drunk driving thing.
Well, and you also got to deal with
the rest of the world works, by the way.
Yeah, you got to deal with the voter rolls too. I mean, you can't allow them to go vote even if they're not a citizen. I mean, that's what they've been trying to do and trying to force through, and that's what the SAVE Act is and all of that. What about the debt? Are you worried about the debt? Debt?
I'm less worried about it than I was under Biden because, and Europe is facing this same problem. And if you look at kind of global bond markets, it's not just our bonds that are having problems. I mean, Japan's got problems, and it's kind of, if you think about it, well, I mean, this sounds really bad, but it's like the government's kind of like your wife and spending, and you're trying to make money and she's trying to spend money. And so you borrow money so that she can spend money. And then you're like, well, how do I get myself out of this? Well, you have to make more money. Right. And so I think now there's been sort of a transition because the US with AI, with energy, with all these things, the US has very good growth prospects. And it used to be that bonds would be sort of hurt by growth. And I think now it's going to swing the other way when bonds actually start to recognize, wow, if the US economy grows at, between 3 and 5%, which it can do, I'm convinced. It's just a question of getting rid of the mafia that the government has on it. But I think if we can grow to 3 to 5%, it makes our prospects for paying this debt back much, much better. And I think the market will reward us for that.
I remember the days as a bond guy back in the 90s when, 5% was the average on, on the 10-year. And I remember 12,
if you have 13, good growth. That's not so bad. It's when you don't have growth and it's 5%, and people in the US. And people in the US, because of the way the feds worked, and they always act like, this is under Powell mostly, but they always act like they're, on the side of Main Street. Well, they're really not, because every time Main Street's wages grow, they decide to hike rates. And that just puts us right back in the same place where we have to borrow more money and we're not collecting and own tax revenues. And the solution is not to tax more, because then you hurt growth. And this is what's happened in Europe, right? The taxing is incessant. And then you basically start burning furniture, right? The government starts getting desperate. You really need to trust that the economy is going to get you out of this. And throughout this MMT stuff, and throughout these very kind of progressive people that have been in these central banks, they've believed that they can just borrow as much as they want, and they kind of want a slow economy so that rates do stay down. But now we're at this point where everyone's got way too much debt. So I think Trump's guys, I mean, I'm not just saying this, but I think they've got a real handle on what needs to be done to get us out of this situation. I know not in a huge way, but I know that some of the longer bonds, and we've talked about this before, but Besant's been out buying stuff in the market. So, and that makes a lot of sense. Now if we can get rates down, it's going to be way better, because if the Fed does get in a cutting mode again, and let's say we cut 100 basis points, well, most of our debt sits in bills, or a huge portion of it sits in bills. So, which is short-term debt, which is short-term, and the Fed cutting rates affects in a big way.
Who do you think who's gonna take over the Trump legacy, and who, not just who has the chance, but who would be the best? I guess two questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I obviously I think the two main guys are Rubio and Vance, right? And I kind of like both of them. Rubio's really surprised me. I'd always thought he was kind of a rhino, and I think he gets it. It's a very different administration this time. People actually, Trump is actually he's getting traction. He's doing things that he said he was going to do. You can't make everyone happy. and I'm not definitely, I don't want forever wars myself, but we're not having one right now in Iran. If that changes, then I'll change my mind. But we're not having that. And so, but I think Rubio's done a really good job. But I also think Vance is pretty solid, and he's kind of standing out on his own, and he's not, he's calling things out when he sees them. And so I think it'll be, probably one of those two. And when I look at the other side, I don't know who the hell they've got in their backbench. They don't have a backbench. It's a joke. I mean, it's
you're seeing certain names, Rahm Emanuel was on TV this morning. I mean, you're seeing people push back out from the old folks' home.
Well, I think it sounds like Newsom is in some trouble.
Yeah, from the FBI investigation.
Yeah, which was so it must have been bad for the Biden administration to sanction that, right?
No kidding. Maybe they wanted to get rid of him for their favorite, for Kamala or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. Last question: Turkey and Israel. I see this. It's fascinating because Trump has obviously got a lot of pro-Israel people in the cabinet. It's a pro-Israel policy for the most part, but he's also cozying up to Erdogan in a big way, and it's going to give him F-35s. And is this just classic Trump?
I think Trump ultimately is doing what he thinks is good for America, right? Netanyahu hates that, or at least on the surface he hates
big
it,
time,
right?
Yeah.
And I think Trump is very different with the Saudis, with Turkey is not an Arab nation, but I think he's treating the Arab countries in a much different way, with much greater respect and a much more open-minded view to their own sovereignty. And so I applaud that. And I think Turkey's a big country and it's very important. So, I think I'm not a huge Erdogan guy. I think he's very corrupt, but Trump's kind of joked about it. But look, I think it's important, and we may need them in some capacity for something, and we may need them on our side, with Iran at some stage, right?
Yes.
So, and who knows what's going on behind closed doors there.
Did you see the present that Erdogan gave all the NATO leaders?
The revolver.
It was like a Dirty Harry revolver. That thing was a cannon, man. Did you see?
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently Keir Starmer brought it back, and it was taken away from him at the airport. Yeah.
I was laughing. That was just funny. I wonder if Trump said, "Hey, man, you should give him a freaking cannon. Give him a gift and see what they do with it." Anyway, Tom, thanks, man. Enjoy France. When you coming back? How long you been over there?
A couple weeks.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Take care, buddy.
Every day, your data is being tracked, collected, and sold, often without you even realizing it. Big tech companies control your devices, your apps, and the information you share. From your messages to your browsing habits, everything is being monitored and stored. Over time, we've traded privacy for convenience, and most people don't even question it. But what if you could take that control back? That's where Mark 37 comes in. Mark 37 provides privacy-focused phones, laptops, and tablets designed to give you full control over your digital life. With secure systems, expert support, and simple tools, they make it easier to step away from constant tracking and data collection. Because privacy isn't just a feature, it's a fundamental choice. It's about protecting your data, your freedom, and your future. Take back control of your digital life with Mark 37.
And by the way, I wanted to say I'm starting my journey with Sean. I'm going to be getting a Ghost phone and then upgrading to a Ghost computer soon, because I am going to unplug for the Matrix. And you can follow me along on my journey. So mark37.com/CDM is where you want to go to do that. Find the webinar, sign up for the webinar, and learn everything you need to know to get started. And then you can also sign up for a free 30-minute consultation on privacy there at mark37.com/CDM. But I'm looking forward to it, and I have been worried about privacy for some time. So I'm going to be taking the plunge and changing my life and unplugging from the Matrix, and I'm really looking forward to it. So maybe you can join me.
A warm welcome here at the National Press Club. Welcome to the journalists, welcome to the Embraer team, and welcome to the other guests that we have here. We're going to announce, and as some of you guessed it right when they came in, the first E2 order by an American operator. and that operator is Avello. We believe this is really a strategic shift to unlock profitability for the customer. I'm very pleased that we have Andrew Levy here as the CEO of Avello, and I'm very pleased to give the stage to share a little bit more about what Avello is going to do with the E2-195. Thank you very much.
Couldn't be more excited to be here as part of this historic announcement. We have such a great cultural fit as companies, so we're very, very excited to be Embraer's newest customer. We launched our airline in April of 21, and our target is focusing on small secondary airports of large metro areas. We've carried over 8 million customers since we started on 63,000 flights. And we've done all these things with 1,200 of the greatest crew members I could ever imagine having, and many of them are here with me today. This is the right airplane for us. It's going to open up opportunities for us that no other aircraft can serve. The best thing about the airplane, of course, is you will not find a middle seat on this airplane. It doesn't exist. We won't have any to offer. It's going to be the best cabin in the United States, and we're so excited about that. This is going to elevate our experience to the highest level, and we think our customers are absolutely going to love the airplane.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
All right. Thanks for joining us here on the SCIF. Welcome back. I want to just give a shout out to the wellness company. Go to twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, and you get 10% off. Spend some time on the website. I am using some of their products right now. Just fantastic stuff. I mean, it's really high quality and really impactful in your life. For instance, the travel emergency kit, I have it right over here. Some of the supplements, the memberships they have, the weight loss drugs, all kind of different things. If you just go spend some time on the website, I guarantee you you'll be happy you did it. So twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, you get 10% off. The travel emergency kit is my number one pick if you want to protect your family, but also the just regular medical emergency kit to have in your house. All right. So I've got Ira Bashowski coming on in the second hour, and we're going to talk gold in the markets and more of a precious metals focus, but continuing on the discussion we had with Tom Teague. But before that, we're off to Beirut here in about 10 days, and we're going to be working on starting our Lebanon paper. And that effort is going to take some time to put it all together, but it's coming probably sometime in a few months, maybe around September timeframe. The paper will be up and running, but we'll let you know about that. But the bigger effort is to unite the Christian community globally. We really think this is really critical, and free media is important to that. So please support us with our no-ad subscriptions. Go to my.cdm.press, my.cdm.press, and sign up for our no-ad subscriptions. It's really important. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. Just pay the $100, get it out of the way for a year. You get access to all of our content with no ads. You know, some people come in and say, look, you've got ads on your site. You know, that's a turnoff, but we have to make money. So if you don't want to see the ads, pay us $10 a month or $100 a year, and you get access to all of it. You can, once you log in, you can go to any CDM site and you're logged in, and no ads pop up on your phone, no pop-up ads, no display ads, etc. So please check that out. On that note, for protecting and uniting the Christian community, I want to play again the video we had with Pastor Jake Dell, who is just a fantastic guy, and he is active in reforming the Protestant church, which is a big one. I mean, not all of you are Protestant, but it's big to recapture the mainline churches. It's going to be good for anybody. So I wanted to play this again. It's not long, but we want to focus on uniting the Christian community, and I think that's a force for good in the world. I mean, the Christians are the one religion, at least now, that aren't going out and starting wars. So it's important to unite that community. Pastor Dell, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. So I saw, well, we'll get to your book in a minute, but there is, I feel there is, I mentioned an awakening or a unification happening with Christianity globally. Do you feel that in your position?
Yes, and I think that's, part of one of the doctrines, great doctrines that come out of the Protestant Reformation was was spiritual unity of all believers, the priesthood of all believers, the doctrine of the invisible church. Not to diminish the doctrine of the visible church, which is what my book is about, but the invisible church is always a living reality, and I think you're sensing that.
Interesting. It's almost like it's some bigger force, obviously, than just humans doing it. It seems like the church is really coming together, and I maybe it's just because I travel to all these different places and I see it happening and people communicating and all of that, and people from the Levant where Christianity was born really wanting to rediscover that and make sure it stays there and to grow that community. But what are you seeing in the great state of Connecticut, the cradle of liberty, where there's not so much liberty these days? What do you see happening in your environment?
Well, I see a resurgence among clergy, pastors of churches, pastors of old historic churches, but also new ones as well, coming together, realizing that they have to regrow their political muscle. And we had the last couple of weeks, I think, have been just headlines in Connecticut about why that's necessary. And I think that the Democrats are largely a group we can't really speak to anymore, but the Republicans we still have access to, and some of us pastors are making our voices heard.
Well, that's good to hear. So you're seeing it you've been a kind of a lone voice in the wilderness, that you see that growing in Connecticut.
I see it growing. I see other pastors, some are not as willing or as able to take the limelight the way I am, but they're working behind the scenes. They're talking to the elected officials in their towns and at the Hartford. They're organizing, meetups of other pastors. There's something called the Republican Assembly, which is a national body. We're organized here in Connecticut. I'm president of the Litchfield County chapter. Vice president is another pastor. So it's happening.
So that's really an issue. Are you seeing pushback or support from the GOP in Connecticut on that?
It's a bit of both. The GOP, like it is everywhere, is kind of at war with itself and sorting itself out. What it's going to be.
What's the feedback from your congregation when you're moving really in this? I would say, I don't want to say political direction, but you're speaking out to issues that you see in the community. What's the reaction?
Well, I have a lot of support from my congregation, and that's largely due to a unique dynamic that I get into in the book, which is that this congregation is over 350 years old, but it was on the brink of closing 6 years ago. So I didn't have a lot of membership to work with when I came. And so most of the people that have joined since then have come under in response to my preaching. So there's a lot of unity, and that's a blessing.
That's really interesting. Is it just your Congregationalist? Is it just your denomination, or are you seeing it in some of the other mainline churches?
I'm seeing this movement take root in other denominations, particularly in the Episcopal Church and in the Presbyterian Church.
Interesting. Good. Well, tell us about the book. What made you write it, and what is it? What are people going to get out of it?
Well, I think it's one of those things where I couldn't have written it until I got to this point in my life. If you ever sit down and you say, I'm going to write a book and nothing happens, that's a good indication you should just wait a little bit longer. So I got to my early 50s and realized I finally had the book in me. Earlier this year, a friend of mine said I should write it. And what it's called is called Exile and Return. And it's the story of my exile from one mainline Protestant denomination, the Episcopal Church, and my return, to my surprise, to another one, the United Church of Christ, which is my current congregation's affiliation. So they couldn't get rid of me, right? I just kept coming back. So that's the return part of it. But it's a memoir, and it's meant to be moving. It's meant to tell the personal story, the things I did right, the things I did wrong. But also, it's a look inside the institution, particularly the Episcopal Church, how it works, and how it worked, especially over the last 3 decades, to really make sure that conservative, biblical, and orthodox voices like mine were suppressed or sidelined.
It really has been one of the most impacted
denominations. We have another father down, Episcopal priest down in Atlanta, who Troy Beecham, who was forced out of the church. And he has medical issues. He has Parkinson's, and the church actually tried to even take his medical care away.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, you see that in a lot of these organizations that have been infiltrated with more this Marxist orientation, that there's punishment if you go against, the regime. Have you felt that?
Is.
Yeah.
Certainly I felt that. And that was, became very explicit after 2020. It was building from 2018 on. When I joined the Episcopal Church in college back in the early 90s, I was confirmed in the Episcopal Church, and that's when I first started to explore a vocation in it. Places like the Northeast were pretty much locked up. They were, there was, if you were conservative, you were not going to get through, but there was still quite a lot of variety and difference of opinion. The Episcopal Church was truly a big tent, I would say, through 2008, 2009, and then there was a split.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
So my book is positioned in something that's a larger movement called the Reconquista, which is really the brainchild of Redeemed Zoomer, 23-year-old man now, who started this about 4 years ago when he was, I guess, just graduating high school. He now has 700,000 followers on YouTube, and I've been tracking his movement for the last 3 years, and really helping to establish a foothold for that movement in the Episcopal Church and in the United Church of Christ. The Wall Street Journal ran an op-ed in its Houses of Worship's column last Friday, profiling the movement. So what we're seeing is that the liberal progressive establishment in the mainline churches has really peaked, probably peaked around 10, 15 years ago. And it's largely old people at this point and younger radicals, millennials who are, transgender, pushing the LGBT agenda. And it's in your neighborhood church. If you walk in, you're going to meet 10 people, 15 people who are old and tired. God bless them. They don't know what to do. These are churches that are ready to be reclaimed for their biblical purpose, for the original intent of their founders, frankly, for the original intent of the gospel in Jesus Christ. Certain denominations are going to be harder than others. The Episcopal Church is harder than the Congregational Church because of the way its government works. In the Congregational Church, every congregation is autonomous, but it's possible, it's doable. But what we're up against is an agenda that wants to see these churches closed and the land sold, or have the churches repurposed for low-income, quote-unquote, low-income housing. We're seeing that happen in Connecticut as zoning laws are just being railroaded through, that towns are losing home rule. So now if you've got a closed church on Main Street, you don't have to get a zoning variance. You don't even have to go to the town anymore. As of right, you can simply, put in a 10-unit, multi-unit apartment building in there without any regard for traffic or parking or what it will do to the neighborhood character.
Yeah, no, it's horrific. The zoning issue is really a sneaky way they've come in to destroy, I think, the communities. I mean, that's the intention, to make it, you live in the pod and eat the bugs.
That's right. Well, and they destroyed the churches first, and that's why 30, 40 years later, this can happen.
So I was talking, not me, but a friend of mine was talking to Catherine Engelbrecht, who started True the Vote. And one of the comments she had was, we don't need more patriots. We need more believers. And it seems to me that Christianity is the only way through this. I was talking with a Ukrainian friend of mine. He's just torn up over essentially Christian fighting Christian in Eastern Europe, and the death and the destruction of and depopulation and ethnocide of his whole world. I mean, and I just said, look, man, the only way through is through faith. I mean, what do you see that?
I do see it. And, there's, especially online, you've got the trad Catholics, the Ortho Bros, the radical Protestants, or the Reformation guys. And, some of those debates I'm certainly willing to have an argument with anyone about, the solas, the principles of the Protestant Reformation, but we have to get on the same team here, because if you look at what's happening just, 80, 90 miles down the road from me in New York City, let's build a coalition here, people.
So true. We want to help you with that with our Connecticut paper, the Connecticut Sentinel. By the way, you're going to have an article on your book up there soon. So if you're in Connecticut, we'll put it on the main global channel as well. What's the name of the book, by the way?
It's called Exile and Return, and you can pre-order it now at exileandreturn.com. And the pre-orders are what's going to help me get it published. So buy one, buy two to give to a friend.
Well, we have a publishing company if you ever need a publisher.
I appreciate that.
Throw that out there. Episcopal Church, it's the Church of England, you know, and I've seen that MI6 and a lot of this globalist stuff is coming out of the city of London and that whole the monarchy and all that. They're very involved in Ukraine. Do you think that had an impact? Is why the Episcopal Church has been so impacted, or do you know anything about that?
You know, I don't have any direct knowledge of that. I'll just remember a line I saw in the show The Americans, which I'm sure you're familiar with, where there was the whole character was having her faith moment, and the two communist parents couldn't understand it. And there was one phone call where the father says to one of his KGB handler, "Can you do anything about this?" And he says, "Oh yeah, we completely own the seminaries." And I think that's probably true.
Wow, wow. In Connecticut, you know, I had been told, I don't know if it's true, that when my family got off the boat in Middleton, they're all buried over there in the 1700s, but and then they moved down to Mississippi, and that's kind of where the Presbyterian Church went south. And then I think the Northeast is more Congregationalist, but I've seen the PCA, Presbyterian Church of America, is really biblically focused, kind of planting churches all over Connecticut. Have you noticed that?
Well, there's a couple of longstanding plants here, and one in New Haven, and yes, they're certainly active. It's still, I'd still say we have got our large number of independent churches, charismatic churches, Southern Baptists. It's a mix. There is faith in Connecticut, believe it or not. It's just not always in the churches you'll see on Main Street.
Well, you can bet that if you drive by an Episcopal church, there's an LGBT flag in the window.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Almost certainly. What's next for you? What does your future look like?
Well, I mean, we are, growing the church here in Woodbury. So my plan is to stay put and continue to tend this vine that God has planted me in.
Wow. So anything else you want to get out to people before I let you
go? Just really, I think the book will be a useful manual. It's not just the story of my life, which I think is interesting, but it's actually a roadmap for, if you feel called to go back into one of these churches, maybe you grew up in one, or maybe you've always wondered what goes on in there, or maybe you just think it's beautiful and you don't want to see it turn into a condominium. The book has a manual, a whole blueprint for how to do that, and how to join a larger movement that's doing just that.
And it's called Exile and Return, and exileandreturn.com. That's where they go.
That's right.
Thank you, Pastor. We'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.
So let's talk some stories while we're here. Until we get Ira coming on. 1 second. So this story we put out this morning about Ukraine is being emptied and depopulated, and now they're looking for migrants in other countries. And there is talk on the street in Ukraine that the people are angry. There are we're going to put out an article. There are massive demonstrations against the conscription riots. There was one video we're going to put out where a guy, a bounty hunter, they call him, says, "Look, get that guy, it's $2,000. So, and then they're putting these up in India, create a family, search for jobs, create the future, select Ukraine, and you can have this beautiful blonde Ukrainian maiden. So just amazing propaganda and really dark stuff happening in Ukraine. So just blows me away. The agenda here of depopulation and replacement theory is obviously happening in Europe, and they tried it here. So we have to support those who want to fix the problem here in the U.S. Let's move to the next story. The Bushehr nuclear plant has been bombed by the U.S. in not the actual plant itself, but around the perimeter. So that is interesting. And I have no idea why the entire X stream has dropped. I apologize, people. We'll have to put this back up. They don't like us. If you haven't figured out, they don't like us. They're throwing us curveballs all the time, and we are just rolling with it and trying to do the best we can to get this show out every day. So we'll stream this again on X. Sorry about that. We'll edit it and restream it on X. So the U.S. bombed the Bushehr nuclear plant, and there was no damage to the plant. but Iran responded by firing on Jordan and other areas across the Gulf. They're trying to get the negotiations back on track, but it is not, at this point, settled yet. So the ceasefire, as Trump said, is over, but maybe it'll come back on. We'll see. But as Tom Teague says, I think that the Trump administration is putting these people on notice. Actually, we just got the X stream back. So this is weird, guys. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, we apologize. We'll cut this, as I said, and edit it and restream it. All right. Vaccines in Connecticut. They're still pushing the propaganda. Let's show you the video. This is going out to children. It's pretty dark as well. Why this would be happening, I don't know.
Life before vaccine was quite a different scene. Once getting sick was quite worrisome. The right medicine had not yet come. Measles, polio, whooping cough too. The kind of sick that could stay with you. Then there came a medical breakthrough. Vaccines created and tested and reviewed, giving your system an alarm to slow disease and reduce harm. Those old diseases, now it's LMC. Thanks to widespread use of vaccines. So ask your doctor, it's talking all through. Asking questions is what caring parents do, and protect who matters most.
So that's pretty dark. I mean, that is our people pushing vaccines that the COVID vax is well known and well documented now that it killed millions around the world and did not stop anyone from getting COVID virus, but essentially also gave millions more long-term vaccine damage to their DNA and their hearts and all kind of stuff. So the fact that these people are still pushing this is absolutely insane. All right, last story. I want to, couple last stories, actually. This one is Graham Plattner is imploding in Maine. You've seen that story, but you can read this on the Connecticut Sentinel. Great article by Don Pecci, who's a big political writer for us in Connecticut. And then the last one. So you saw the cold open Mitch McConnell put in an ambulance and taken to the hospital. And from everything we've heard, is not doing well and could be near the end. But his wife, instead of staying with her dear husband that she loves so much, flies to China and in 3 days is sitting with the Chinese vice premier or something like that. So just insane. And then John Thune spreads, who's running the Senate, is saying, well, Mitch is fine. I talked to him yesterday. He's great. I can guarantee you that's not the situation. So who is John Thune working for? It's quite obvious who Elaine Chao was working for and Mitch McConnell was working for. All right, my friends, I'm sorry about that tape with Pastor Jake Dell. We'll have to play that again some other time, but we'll take a break now and come back. And I've got Ira Bishotsky, and we're going to talk markets. Thank you. We'll be right back.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. We are in the world of medicine very acquainted with many modalities, but probably the one most familiar with everybody would be two things: homeopathy and herbals or herbs, maybe some nutrients too, vitamins, minerals, that kind of thing. Now, we do know a lot about the drugs because we have to find out what drug you're taking affects you and what nutrient it depletes you of, because most every drug pharmacy product will deplete something. So we have been trained and we have a database that we can check into that says this is going to take your B12 away. The pharmaceutical company cannot patent organic substances made by the body. You're not born short of Advil. You're not born short of Ritalin.
Yeah.
You can be born short of insulin, right? Mm-hmm. The answers to staying healthy and keeping away from even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You and I get sick because our terrain gets out of balance. Well, that's the same thing in the soil. You and I are made from this thing called dirt. And when we get out of balance, we have the same thing happen. Weeds start to grow in our body. Right? And that's what we want in our body. We want nutrients that we don't understand how to get well enough yet because our suppliers are lacking knowledge on nutrient density foods.
So this is what drove you to develop this, was your knowledge of this, right?
Right. You know that.
I'm excited to announce that we're having a huge sale on overstock and brand new products. For example, My Pillow Percale bed sheets, every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. Our Percale bed sheets are breathable, cool and crisp, and they're perfect for spring and summer. And check out Rev 7, the next generation of energy drinks. It tastes great, and it gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. Best of all, it's actually good for you. And for a limited time, try our 3-pack absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs, or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes, only $29.88. Twin size, full size, queen size, king sizes, all $29.88. Inventory is extremely limited at this price, so order now.
Well, I hope we're back streaming okay. I got one take that the screen is frozen. I hope that's resolved at this point. If it's not, let us know. But got a great comment. Mr. Wood, the MAGA is fake. You and John B. Wells broadcast true news. We'd have nothing real if it weren't for you guys. God keep you in peace. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. All right, so we overcame that hiccup. We're still streaming, and we're going to bring in Ira Brashowski, and let's talk markets. So, Ira, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me, and I agree with that last comment. You guys, CDM is the real deal, the real thing.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for those kind words. I had a thought. Well, thank you. I had a thought this morning. I was looking at the charts, and is it time to back the truck up for gold? What do you think? I mean,
it's always time to back the truck up for gold, but kind of interesting. I'm a chart guy, and I look at the 50 and 200-day moving averages, and I did a more recent study, and people can go to my blogs as well, and I know you post them. So I have my notes here. I'm an older guy, so I got to look at notes.
That's all good.
So with gold, back on March 23rd of this year, went down to the 200-day moving average and bounced off it, which tells you a lot. The 200-day moving average is really what the big players look at, and that's your big trend indicator. Then back in June, just a month ago, it dipped below. So you lost a couple of percentages on that little whipsaw, and now you're up, like 5% or something, or whatever the number is. And it's starting to build a base. Same thing with silver, and I'll get to silver in a moment. They're starting to build a base like they've done in the last month. They're kind of going sideways. So is the decline, slowing down? I believe so. Silver, same thing. It had that crazy run up to over $120 an ounce. And then, for the Fibonacci people, it dropped 50%, where it kind of is now, and that's a big Fibonacci number. So it's also building a base here, and so it went through the 200-day moving average back in June, whipped a little bit, June 9th through 12th, and now it's below the 200-day moving average. And if you're looking for the trend indicators, you can see the big run up, and as you're showing on the chart, and you can see where it's going just a little bit sideways. If you expand it a little bit, you can see where it's starting to build a base. So to answer, build the truck up. Yeah, sure. Bring the load the truck up and go. And in terms of the Dow, because that's also the third thing I look at, and that's a good barometer as well. So the Dow went through back on March 18th. It went down through its 200-day moving average. Then in April 6th, April 8th, it went up, through the 200-day moving average, and it's, that's where it is right now, and it's going a bit higher. So again, a little bit of a whipsaw, which is what happens on moving averages, but then the trend's going up, and I think it's getting a bit overextended, and we're going to start to see a reversion to the mean. And as you know, Todd, we bring this up, you and I, all the time, about the bond market being the tail that wags the dog. And the 30-year went above 5% recently, and that's kind of an indicator of maybe some weakness in the stock market. And the 10-year, which mortgage rates are attached to, that's kind of going sideways a bit. So any asset class is fine, and the metals, they're there for the diversification. So yeah, drive the truck up. I think I've said that 3 times in the last 2 minutes.
So is the I guess the correct the retreat or sell off of precious metals that are now building a base, and for our audience, that means that the decline is done and it's just kind of, it feels good where it is and it's waiting for a catalyst to kind of move it higher. Is that because of the ceasefire in the Gulf, or was it because of rate hike fears? I mean, what do you think caused that, or is it just overbought?
It's overbought, it's oversold. And the things with, that's why I look at the charts more, and I put the fundamentals on the side, because back in March, right, the thing, tariffs, you never hear about tariffs anymore. And then no, the MOU, right? There's an MOU. Okay, well, there isn't an MOU, and then we're hitting them, they're hitting us, and it's whipsaw. It just drives me nuts.
Good point.
So I just look and see where the prices are, and it's going sideways, building the base, and so for the adventurous, it's a great time to get in. And in my last blog post, I said there are 2 or 3 possibilities, of it going higher from here, and that's building the base. The Dow is overextended above its moving averages. I call them the saving grace, and the is with the S in parentheses.
Yeah. So it's a good time, in your opinion. A lot of people are saying, well, gold's ran way up. Well, it's come down significantly, precious metals in general, and the equity markets are overbought, for lack of a better term, possibly, too much steam behind them. And so they could come down, and gold, some of that money's got to go somewhere. And, I learned on Wall Street, you want to buy something that nobody else wants. When there's blood in the street, that's when you buy. And so this might be a really good time, or probably is a good time, for precious metals to you're coming in at a good point, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, exactly. And yeah.
Okay.
You said it all.
And central banks are still buying gold, right? Globally.
Yeah, they're actually buying more. I was looking at a couple of articles the other day, and they're all in on gold. They're going to be buying it and buying more, and that's going to support the price as well.
So you can reach Ira at Advisor Metals at cdmmetals.com. Just go there and you can fill out the form, and someone on his team will contact you. And I promise it's not a high sales job. I've said this before, but I remember my days in the military when I didn't know much about financial markets, and I get these calls from these guys at night. Hey, put 10,000 in silver futures. Who wears the pants in your family? All the high pressure stuff. That's not you, right, Ira?
Not at all. As you and I are talking, that's the way I talk with people. And, I find out the first questions I ask are, why precious metals? What are you hoping gold, silver can do for you? That way it gives the potential customer and myself, a starting point as to where to go. And it's, as I always say, it's not about me, it's about them. It's what works for them for their goals and aspirations. That's the way, I look at it. And people say, well, Ira, how do you talk with people? I talk with them like I'm in their living room. What do you say? I go, nice couch. I mean, what else can you say?
Well, I had a viewer who you did some business with, and she texted me the other day, and she said, I went and saw my gold this weekend that I bought with IRA in my IRA. So tell us, if you've got an IRA, a lot of people, may have retired from, FedEx or whatever, and they rotate their 401k out into an IRA, self-directed. How do they look at precious metals in a very effective way?
It is a very, very effective way. And so there's two ways to purchase physical precious metals. One's what we call the cash buy, and that's where you wire in funds, because we only accept those for compliance purposes. And the metals are delivered to your home or office. And the other is you can roll over all or part of an eligible retirement account. That's IRA, 401k, 403b, TSP for the government workers. And that way that you still get physical precious metals, but they go into your retirement account, and they need to be stored at a third-party depository by IRS rules. And I, help you handle that transaction. There's a couple of self-directed IRA custodians I work with, so it's a little bit of a process, but it's very easy. I've been doing it for a very long time. Everything is very transparent. As I tell people, I've got a Series 3 commodity license. I've had it since 1991. And this industry, I love this industry, the physical precious metals industry, but it's the Wild West. As far as I know, I'm the only person that's licensed in this industry that has, the commodities license. And that way, I have to be fully transparent. There's no bait and switch. There's just, conversation. And, I don't throw shade on my competitors, but I do have to say that a very large competitor went out of business, went bankrupt just last week. And that is because they were taking the money and not buying the metals for the people. In fact, they hadn't made any money in the last 3-4 years, and they were sending out false statements or whatever.
Wow.
But when you roll over the retirement account, you're getting confirmations from your self-directed IRA custodian, and I follow the process every step of the way with you. So there's integrity there. There's full transparency, and it's I'm with you the whole way. So it's very, when I say safe, meaning the process is very safe. It's just like if you bought a stock or a mutual fund and it's in your retirement account, but that's on a server. This way,
that's a good point. That's a good point. You can actually go see your gold, as I said, and your pricing's very good too. You're not gouging like 30, 40, 50% like some people do.
No, and that's what I was going to bring up as well. These companies, like this one that went out of business, they charge 30 to 60% markups. Why do they have to do that? Well, first of all, they've got to buy their mansions and their sports cars, but that's neither here nor there. They've got to pay for their spokespeople. They've got to pay for all their advertising. They've got to pay for all their people, all that. And I've got a leaner operation, so I don't have to pay for all that. So my markups are a fraction of what the other people charge, because you want the people to make money and protect themselves. I mean, and there's plenty of money circulating in the world, and I just get my part of it, and that's great.
Outstanding. Ira, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. Anything else you want to tell people?
No, just keep going to CDM and know what's real.
Thank you. Take care, my friend. Ciao.
All right.
All right, that's the show today. Sorry about that hiccup. We're going to edit this and put it out on X, and we'll probably restream it at some point. But the Rumble and YouTube will be correct. So you know what? They don't like what we're saying. I think it's getting very obvious. It's funny. Oh, I wanted to mention something, and I'll just throw this up real quick if I can find it. So we are going to be, hold on. I'm at the wrong spot. I've got to find this. We are going to be hosting the Florida GOP gubernatorial debate, and it's going to be later this month on the 22nd, I believe. And we're really excited about that. We are the primary media company that's going to be streaming the debate in Florida, and I'm just trying to find that thing. Hold on. So here it is. All right, share this tab. We are hosting the debate, so please check it out, and we'll be giving you more information on that as time goes on. So really, really proud to be hosting the debate in Florida. So, all right, that's all we have today. We'll talk to you later. Take care.